Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you that are calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through this call and bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential revaluation of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the purchase or sale of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be a potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We continue to believe that the first quarter, that is prior to the end of March, we're looking at least a 50-50 shot of the reinstitution of the dinar. But there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. I've tried to simplify the situation as much as I can, but it's rather difficult. There's only one word I can use to describe the situation in Iraq today, and that is confusion. There are mixed signals coming from everywhere, so we're going to try to cut through some of it and try to see where all the players sit as we speak today. So let's start with the executive branch of the government of Iraq. The Prime Minister designate Alawi has selected his cabinet. There have been 7 postponed votes for the confirmation of this cabinet. The next scheduled vote is supposed to be tomorrow, Thursday the 20th. We'll see if that occurs. One of the delays is, and it's so typical of Iraq, that the various blocs within Parliament are basically attempting to bribe Alawi and saying, well, if you'll give us this or you'll give us that, then we'll go ahead and vote to confirm your people. Alawi seems to be a kind of a stand-up guy and saying, no, you're going to vote them up or down on their merit. We're not playing this game anymore. It's really frustrating that they cannot come to a simple agreement. Everyone wants something in return for doing their job. On the legislative side, of course, we have the Parliament, the 2 houses being the Council of Representatives, which is referred to as the House, and then the Federation Council. And the Parliament, in addition to their attempts to influence Alawi, are also wanting to postpone the election of the new Parliament for 6 months. Now, Iraq, for lack of a better description, has what I would call a quasi-parliamentary system. Without going into getting into the weeds about it, there could be a vote as early as within 2 months, or it could be postponed for another 6 months. And, of course, the Parliament wants to postpone that election basically for 2 reasons. First, the members of the Parliament know that a vast majority of them will not be reelected because of their intransigence. And second, a large number of them know that if they do lose their re-election bid, they'll be exposed to the accountability and justice law. They will have lost their immunity, and there will be consequences for their corruption. So that's another problem and hurdle that has to be overcome. Now, the international community is well aware of all of this, and I'm referring to the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, and even the United States. Of all these groups, actually the United States, which isn't an international agency, but with their economic power, holds the most or provides the most threat to Iraq, because the reinstitution of the sanctions could really hurt Iraq's economy. And these institutions have basically said to Iraq, that we have been patient for over a decade, and it's finally time for you to do things necessary to put a government in place that's acceptable to all of the people of Iraq, and to create international stability, meaning to eliminate the undue influence of Iran and the corruption and the pilfering of Iraqi wealth. So there will be severe consequences if they do not proceed. The UN, of course, will move Iraq back into Chapter 7. The IMF will make them remain indefinitely in Article 14. The World Bank will simply cease and desist all international contracts, and, of course, the United States sanctions. So, I'm as frustrated as anyone else with the officials in Iraq. They're corrupt. They're self-serving. They're not conducting themselves in an ethical, professional, or even legal manner. And I, for one, I don't care if it's only for 24 hours. I want them to get their act together, reinstitute their currency, so you and I and the rest of us can simply go to the bank, do our exchange, protect our money in the ways that I'll be discussing a little later, and just move on with our lives. Now, there is one area of government that actually has done their job, and that's the CBI. In terms of recent CBI operations, they are ready to complete the project of deleting the zeros and the release of the lower dinars from the 8 regional banks, which will result in the reinstitution of their Iraqi dinar in country. But they're waiting for the formation of the new government and passage of the 2020 budget. Now, the budget has been passed, but there's a complication. And the complication is that the government was forced basically to make payments to government officials and other employees, and they had to make those payments at the 1180 rate. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't reinstitute because the budget's made payments at 1180 rate. It means that the Finance Committee is going to have to do a lot of work in order to amend and recalibrate the budget to account for the stepped-up reinstituted rate. But all of these things can get accomplished. We have approximately 5.5 weeks, almost 6 weeks, to get this done in the first quarter. All of this can be accomplished, but the corrupt officials must understand that it's over for them. There's nothing that's going to save them, whether it's a couple of months or a couple of weeks, it doesn't matter. And the elected officials that have simply refused to accommodate the reasonable demands of the protesters have lost the right to be reelected. So let's hope that the Iraqi government finally understands that they've got to enter the 21st century, set their tribal and sectarian differences aside, purge themselves of the corrupt officials, get the damned Iranians out of their country, and proceed with the reinstitution of their currency, the implementation of the international contracts to rebuild their electric grid and their infrastructure, and just, enjoy normal, decent lives that the Iraqi citizens have been denied roughly since 2003. So again, in conclusion, I believe that there's a better than 50-50 chance that all of this can get done in the next 6 weeks, 5.5 to 6 weeks, which means we can see the reinstitution of the currency in this quarter. Now, that being the case, I'm going to turn our attention to the program that Trusts Unlimited has put in place to assist Dinarians, most of whom are just regular working guys and women who, for the first time in their life, are going to be acquiring a substantial amount of wealth, and many just have no idea how to protect, preserve, and grow that wealth. And to that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a 2-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your pre-valued currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with phase one, which is, again, the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust product. Now, there are a number of entities that one can establish to provide some privacy and asset protection, but there is a reason that Trusts Unlimited has designed a specific package of irrevocable trusts to accomplish that objective. Let me touch on some of the other entities that people have established. Some individuals have established LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they can provide some level of asset protection by primarily separating business assets from personal assets. But remember, these currencies are not a business asset, they're a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by either one person or a closely held group can be pierced for civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are simply not appropriate to provide the asset protection you're going to need and want. Some individuals have established something called a revocable or a living trust. And those trusts do allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate, and they can reduce and in some cases even eliminate the federal estate tax. But revocable or living trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established a single irrevocable trust, and that certainly would provide more privacy and asset protection than the things I just mentioned previously. But there's an inherent flaw with a single trust, and that's that all of your assets and your net worth are owned by that one single trust. So if any asset within that trust is involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag your other assets and net worth into that litigation as well. So a single irrevocable trust is going to be inappropriate. The only bulletproof asset protection available domestically would be a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to discuss in a little bit more detail why that's the case. But first I want to review with you the reasons you would need to establish such a package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and whatever other currencies you may be holding. The reasons are as follows. First, by establishing this package of asset protection trusts, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. What do I mean by that? If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating because it's coming along at the precise time of the revaluation when you have much more important things to deal with. And ironically, the cost of an IRS 6-year audit would be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your asset protection trust package is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package pre-RV, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, that's important for two reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an audit if this revaluation were to occur within a trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because one of the sub-trusts within this package is our specially designed gift sub-trust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to give currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our exclusively designed gift subtrust. By gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. In addition, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to those individuals as you deem appropriate. And third, the language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning that you can give to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. The fourth reason you would want to establish this package of pre-RV asset protection trusts is because they've been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie your estate up for years, and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either very limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess through probate in order for that estate to be transferred to your heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. It doesn't get any better than that. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win in a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer them to the trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. And now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, this is the package of trust that I referred to. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection standpoint? Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Someone owns that vehicle. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities or persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue any other separate legal entity or person in their civil litigation. So this package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of asset protection trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, a holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you in our Phase 2 program. I'll just make mention of one benefit here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is with the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We will have our tax specialists there as well, and many of you for the first time will need assistance with some of the more sophisticated tax strategies for individuals with substantial wealth. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of major banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So that's another reason you're going to want to get a substantial amount of that money out of the banks and at work in other markets. Lastly, we know the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth invested in tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and manage the other sub-trusts. One optional gift sub-trust, which at any time can be converted to a standard sub-trust, and 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians some years back, we knew that that price tag was going to be simply unaffordable for too many. So by basically simplifying that trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar happens, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place prior to the revaluation should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons that I've stated here. Now, I will be going to the Q&A in just a moment, but before I do, and again, for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us and getting our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them and lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family situations where you need and want control, but because you do not have a trust in place and because you own assets in direct title, you have lost that control. Situations like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes, investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Under our system of civil procedure, anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. I'm going to the Q&A in just a moment. I suggest our newer callers have a pen and paper handy because I will be giving you our contact information. If the things we've discussed here are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us. We'll be happy to send you our no-obligation initial package. It includes everything you need should you decide to proceed with the establishment of a trust. But again, you're under no obligation to do so. The package has a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the evaluation itself. You can review the package, contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A now. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We don't take service calls for existing clients. This time is reserved for people interested in our trust package. And second, for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen in order to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to open up now. While I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3 and use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. you should be in our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but post-RV emails will probably be going out on a weekly basis. So let's go to our callers here. Our first caller is area code 603. That's 603. That must be Don.
Hey, Jim. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing, my friend?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be twins. We're in Florida right now. Nice and warm here in Florida. So, hey, how you been? You been doing good?
Yeah, I'm hanging in
there. Good. Yeah, I mean, I'm only going to be weak listened to you. I don't know if I get a chance to call in, but I got a quick question about the currency itself. On some of the guru sites, they talk about something called a LOP. What is a LOP, and how would it affect our investment if indeed it ever happens?
Okay. A LOP, okay, there's a couple of issues. There's a denominational revaluation. There's a LOP. A LOP just basically means they're just cutting those 3 zeros off. Now, that's technically what's not happening here. What's happening here is that the Iraqi national, whether they walk in the bank with a 25 dinar note or a $2,500 dinar note, they're both going to be treated the same. There's 3 zeros. Simply, they pretend they do not exist. The provisional currency will drop down to the value of the standard lower denom, as opposed to an international investor like ourselves, where there is no LOP, the 3 zeros will be recognized. So basically, I'm oversimplifying. A LOP just means if you have the provisional currency, whoever you are or wherever you are, just erase 3 zeros. That's not the case. They're simply stepping up the value of the currency by eliminating the 3 zeros in country, and they're recognizing the 3 zeros for those of us that are not Iraqi citizens that invested in Iraq by purchasing their provisional currency.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought the drop from the 3 zeros had to do with the exchange rate. Did you see it? Like right now, it's 0.00084. If you take those off, it would be 84 cents.
We don't know what the exchange rate's going to be because that will be established by the IMF when they take the Iraqi dinar out of the program rate. The deletion of the zero, which is technically the collection of the zeros, simply means that an Iraqi citizen in country that's got a $25,000 note, really it's only worth 25 dinar. And what the dinar is worth is what they're going to determine. What the $25,000 note that we hold is worth is what the IMF will determine when they establish the international rate against other currencies.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, because there was some talk on one of the guru sites about them doing a LOP, and there's really only one person talks about that, but just wanted to get that clarified.
Well, I'd like to simplify it. Just if you're an Iraqi citizen in country, pretend the 3 zeros don't exist, and that's what you're holding. So a $25,000 note is actually a 25 dinar note, and it's worth whatever a 25 dinar note is worth in country. And then vice versa for us, a $25,000 note is going to be whatever the IMF says it's worth.
Okay, so it's not something going to happen for us then. So, okay, very good.
No.
Very good.
Yes, sir.
You still, Jim, one more question. You still feel confident they're going to come out $1, maybe a little over that? Is that still your instinct?
When it does happen, it's got to be at least 1 for 1. And even if it comes out at 1 for 1, I wouldn't run to the bank to exchange it because I can't believe that within 30 days it won't be over $3.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Jim, stay well, buddy.
Yes, sir.
You take care, and I'll keep listening. And Lex will probably call in too, so listen to him.
Yeah, I see him on here. He's in there somewhere. I'll take you later. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Doug in Oklahoma City.
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Okay, how you doing?
Very well. So the budget, they've started making payments at 1180, which means that they're going to have to go back and readjust. Hopefully that won't be such a big deal. if this goes towards, from a tax standpoint on our side, if this goes to the end of March, in that the money is held in the irrevocable trust, that doesn't necessarily impact us to the point where we have to pay anything by April 15th, does it?
If the revaluation happens in the second quarter, then taxes would not be due until the following quarter. And as I've said in the past, it's going to be a little bit hairy if a revaluation happens at the end of any given quarter, because the IRS and the Treasury Department have not given us a definitive written response to our request as to what the tax status is, both in and out of a trust. So we're on the fly on that one. But you're right. If the revaluation happens in the last week in March, we're going to have to come up with something, some sort of an answer, because taxes would be due on April 15th. If the revaluation happens on April 2nd, we don't have to worry about it until July 15th.
Okay. So hypothetically, say you have 1 million dinar and it goes for $1. So you have the total value of $1 million in your trust. But if you don't take out any of that money, if you leave that value in the trust, it is tax deferred until we pull it out. Is that correct?
Pursuant to Section 643B of the IRS Code, that's true. The problem is if the IRS determines that they're not going to honor that and we don't pay the tax, the penalty is 100%. Well, if they decide it's ordinary income, that's 44%, meaning that if they hit us with a 100% penalty, they're going to take 90 cents on the dollar. What's going to happen, unfortunately, and we've already got a letter prepared, let's say hypothetically that the revaluation happened in the last week of March. The IRS has not responded to us on the tax status. What we're going to have to do, and it sucks, but it's what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to pay the ordinary income tax and simultaneously apply for a refund citing Section 988E2 and 643B of the Internal Revenue Code. We don't want to have to do that, but that may be the box they put us in if they don't give us a response, and a reval happens at the end of a quarter.
Okay. And that is, if they determine that, does that also mean that they would make a determination that the asset wasn't protected under the purview of the irrevocable trust?
643B says, the profit from the sale or exchange of a capital asset within an irrevocable trust is tax deferred. The IRS could honor that, or they could choose not to honor that under these circumstances and call it ordinary income. If we do not have a definitive answer, even though it hamstrings us, we're going to have to pay the ordinary income, meaning we're going to have to exchange the currency that we don't want to exchange. We're going to get hurt on the deal. That's why I've said what will probably happen is the moment the currency reinstitutes, not revals globally, but reinstitutes in country, our lawyers are sort of like swallowing hard, but I've said to them, look, as far as I'm concerned, we need to send them a letter demanding an answer as to the tax status and threatening civil litigation if they don't respond, because they can't put us in this situation. This happened one other time. The Bill Clinton tax, I've discussed this before, the tax increase Bill Clinton's went into effect in September of 1993, but it was retroactive to January 1st, and a lot of people got hurt. Well, it took years to work that out. Finally, there was a class action suit saying, look, you can't spank us by creating a retroactive, we followed the tax law in the first quarter of 1993. Now you're going to penalize us in the third quarter? Well, that's the situation we're looking at. But we're talking about a lot more money this time around. So let's hope the IRS doesn't do that to us. But right now I'm relying on, like I said, 980.82 and 643B, which says it's a capital asset. The gain is a capital gain, and if it occurs within the trust, it's tax deferred. That's what the code says.
The concern would be that you would have to pay the tax, so you would have to exchange the dinars at the rate, which would be within a few weeks, and which, unfortunately, may not be the top end rate. I mean, the rate may not go to $3 for a month or 5 weeks or something like that, and so we would miss out on the potential upside because we had already had to, cash in the dinars.
Right, and what we would probably need to do is get together and sue the federal government for screwing us on that deal.
Right.
For forcing us to prematurely exchange the currency to pay a tax that they did not confirm was even due because we feared 100% penalty. Now, if it's just you or me, one little guy, of course, we're not getting anywhere. They're going to grind us into the dust. But if it's 8 million dinarians that are worth probably collectively, $100 billion, well, then the IRS is going to have to go to federal court and explain what they've done.
Yep. One last question. We're talking about the officials in Iraq, and based on the fact that the sanctions deadline came and went, and we didn't do anything, and the undue influence of Iran, which people say, or it is somewhat documented, that they took as much as $40 billion from Iraq last year. I mean, even if they siphoned off $5 billion of that to pay off their officials, that's many, many millions of dollars for each of the corrupt officials. If there's no consequence, if they feel that there's no consequence, there's no fire under their feet, it seems to me that there really isn't much of an incentive for them to get things done in an expeditious manner.
Okay, I can't really get into too much detail about where I got this information, but I'm just going to give you the general information that I received. Donald Trump, when he draws a red line, he pretty much sticks to it. My understanding is that he has postponed the sanctions, but he's given them an alternative drop-dead date, and if they don't meet that drop-dead date, the sanctions are going to be the worst they've ever experienced, to use his parlance. So I think some things are being discussed. Trump likes to do everything out in the open, but sometimes he does stuff through back channels, and I think through back channels it's being made crystal clear to them that they better move expeditiously or it's going to be hell to pay.
Well, one of the back channels examples that we can get to is his annihilation of ISIS. He never told anybody what he was going to do. It just started happening. He didn't alert the press that we were going to go in there and do all this. So I think that was, that's documented that he can actually work that way. Last question. You mentioned two sections of the IRS code, 643B. I wrote that down, and then it was a 988B2.
988E2.
Oh,
now, 988. Now 988E2 is important. A lot of people cite 988E2, but they miss the very last sentence. A lot of people think, well, I'll just hold on. As long as I don't exchange the currency, there's no tax to be paid. That's not true. When you're doing currency exchanges, there's something called a consumptive exchange, and there's something called a speculative exchange. The consumptive exchange means if the profit or loss on an exchange is at or below $200, there's no taxable event. A speculative exchange means if the gain exceeds $200. The last sentence of 98082 says, if the profit that you would have other realized from the exchange exceeds $200, you must pay the tax. What that means is the revaluation itself is the taxable event, not the date of the exchange.
I've quoted that statement that you've made in the past to some friends and even some family members that hold dinar, and they completely discount that they're not going to have to pay any tax until, they actually go to the bank. And I'm saying I don't think that's true. The saddest part would be the 100% penalty. I mean, you'd walk away with.
Yeah, why would you even risk that? That's just
right.
That's just felony stupid.
That's right. So anyway, well, thank you again.
Sure.
the drop dead date, I know you can't give us any information. I'm just hoping that it is before the end of the first quarter.
I've gotten in trouble in the past for mentioning not a name, but a situation that involved a person that anyone that was involved in it knew who in other words, they knew they told me something they shouldn't tell me. So I'm not trying to be mysterious. I'm really not. But I've been at this game a long time. I know a lot of people, and basically, like I said, Trump's being a little bit merciful right now, but he's the man's a very impatient man. And he gets himself into trouble sometimes doing that. But on the other hand, he's a transactional person. He gets things done because he only has one thing in his toolbox, a sledgehammer, And, every once in a while it's too much of a heavy lift, but other times it's the only thing that works. So let me put it to you this way. We got the right guy in the White House to get this done. Love him or hate him.
I love him or hate him. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Wait till next week. Talk to you later.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye. All right, our next caller is area code 312. That's got to be Les.
Yes, indeed. Finally,
yeah.
It's my turn. Hey, Jim.
Well, you've been blowing up my text lately, but that's all right. I like the information.
All righty. Well, I appreciate that you like the information. Want to say hi to you, hi to the professor. Hey, what's happening, Don? And all of the Jimites out there listening to the call. Thanks for the information.
Sure.
I like that sledgehammer. That sledgehammer, oh, man, that's nice. I love that sledgehammer.
Well, it's the truth.
Yeah, it is. And, I want to say this drop-dead date has to be somewhere the end of February, the 2nd of March, because I think I was either told or I read that they have to have something done by a certain date or they're going back in with the sanctions and all.
I
know you can't.
But
I know you can't confirm.
There is a drop dead. There is a drop dead.
Right. And I believe they're going to have it done prior to that. I also think that they actually either finished the voting on Tuesday and haven't disclosed it, or they're going to do the vote tomorrow and then disclose it afterwards. What's up with the 5 women? Or is it 4 women? They got 4 or 5 women?
It's 5. Well, basically what Alawi is trying to – he's really poking an eye at him culturally by doing that. He's basically said, look, I'm choosing independent people. I'm not choosing anyone because of any threats from any of the blocs. I'm going to include Sunni so long as they are not corrupt or radical Iranian, pro-Iranian. I'm going to choose, Shia. I'm going to choose Sunni. I'm going to choose Kurds. I'm going to choose women as well. So he's kind of doing a Trump on him. He's just poking him right in the eye and saying, this is what I'm going to do. Deal with it.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Hoping for some good things to happen today and tomorrow. Well, the vote, meaning sometime tonight, they should have it early in the morning. We should at least know what they've got.
Yeah.
They're 8 hours ahead?
Let's hope that's the case. But the way I look at things from my perspective and because of the work that I do is how long can we be in limbo but it looks like the situation is going to change. Technically, we have until the end of March. And then things are going to get ugly. So I hope you're right. And I kind of agree that the next couple of weeks are going to be important. So let's just hope that by next week when I'm here on the call, I have a lot of good news.
I hope so. Thanks, Jim, for taking my call. Have a great day, man.
Yes, sir. Take care.
All right.
Well, Les is our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I hope those of you that are listening for the first time and are intrigued with what we said will contact us and get our initial package. Once again, you're under absolutely no obligation by doing so. We'll assist you in every way. There will be no consultation fee. And as I said, as far as I'm concerned, it's a better than 50-50 chance we get this done in the next 5 to 6 weeks. So you're running out of time to to learn about the things you need and should do prior to this revaluation, so I hope you'll contact us to get our initial package. Our next call, of course, will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. I'm wondering if Les got back in here. Let me see. No, okay. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.